get stronger.
This first part of the notes is just a reminder. It's very important to know this stuff because this is what you need to do a large portion of the test. Okay, so when I give you 2 points, step 1, label your coordinates x1, y1, x2, y2, find the slope using the slope formula, and then since you have some points and you have the slope, you could do point slope form, and here's point slope form, and then from there you could modify it by distributing and either changing it to slope intercept or standard form. Those are like detailed instructions on writing all 3 forms of an equation given 2 points. Okay, so let's actually give you an example. Let's say I do give you 2 points. So I got these from a worksheet 4.2. We have 2 points right here. And it says over here that the first thing you should do is label your coordinates and find the slope using the slope formula. That's what it says right here. Label your coordinates, find the slope. So let me label my coordinates. And I'm going to find my slope using the slope formula. So as you can see, they're labeled. That's my formula. When I use my formula, do the division sign and the subtraction symbols first. It'll help you from making mistakes. And then we're actually going to plug in our y2 value, which is 5, our y1 value, which is -3, our x2 value, which is 4, our x1 value, which is -2. And then the minuses change to plus, 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 plus. We end up with 8/6. Wait a minute, I think we've done this before. I think, yeah, we have done this before in a different video. We'll keep going anyway. So the slope is 4/3. Yay? Yeah. That is your slope. M equals 4/3. And ladies and gentlemen, you will get a point just for that. Let's go back to the notes. Step 2. Since you have some points, right? We started with 2 points. And you found your slope. Think about it. You have some points and you have slope. What form are you going to use out of the 3? So out of these 3 forms, standard form, slope intercept, point slope, if you have points and you have a slope, you're obviously going to use point slope form. So let's start with point slope form. So going back to our work here, let's first write down our point slope form, which we should all have memorized. It's y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. Okay, so I'm going to use the first point, x1, y1. So when I plug in x1 of -2, plug it in right here. And I want to take the y1 of -3, plug it in right here. And my slope that we found 4/3 right here, I'll have my equation in point slope form. I like to use different colors so you could clearly see what we're plugging in. So a good idea would be to rewrite your point slope form equation with blank spots. Y minus blank spot for the y1 equals blank spot for the m, parenthesis x minus blank spot for the x1 that we're plugging in. And now let's plug in our values. So we have y1, which is -3. We have x1, which is -2. And we also have the m value, which we found out was 4/3. And ladies and gentlemen, you get a point. Actually, let's do one more thing. The minuses change to plus plus. So let me rewrite my whole equation. Y plus 3 equals 4/3 parenthesis x plus 2. And like I said, that is in point slope form. Point slope form. Okay, so you get 1 point for finding your slope. You get another point for doing point slope form, and now you need to change it to the other 2 forms, and you get an additional point for each one that you change it to. So going back to the notes here, whoa. We wrote it in point slope form, and the third one, we're going to change it to the different forms, y equals mx plus b, or capital AX plus capital BY equals capital C, which is standard form. So let's go back to our point slope form. And it may be a good idea to rewrite your point slope form on the side, and then from there manipulate it. So on standard form, it doesn't have the parentheses that you see here. On slope intercept form, it does not have the parentheses that you see here. So it's totally up to you guys whether to go standard or slope intercept, but either way, you're going to have to get rid of the parentheses. Now let's go with standard. What do we know about standard form? Standard form is So standard form is AX, capital AX plus capital BY equals capital C. A, B, and C are capitalized to help you remember that you don't want fractions. As you can see, this point slope form equation, the same one here, I just rewrote it over here, it does have a fraction. So if you want, you could get rid of the fraction right from the start by multiplying everything by what?
3.
By 3. So if I multiply the y times 3, the 3 times 3, and the 4/3 times 3, I'm going to have a new equation, and that new equation is 3y plus what? 9, help me out guys, come on, equals,
4.
the 3's cancel, 4, thank you, parenthesis, x plus 2. Notice that I did not multiply the inside values by 3, because whatever I do to the outside guy, that's going to get distributed anyway. It's like if I did it to the inside guys. So keep that in mind. Multiply only the outside fraction by 3, not the inside. It's kind of like if the parentheses are protecting the x plus 2. You don't multiply x or 2 by 3. Is everybody clear with that? Okay, so it's still not in standard form. Why not? Because standard form doesn't have parentheses, and right here I do have parentheses. So I need to get rid of the parentheses. I want to get rid of those parentheses by distributing. So 4 times x is what? 4x. 4 times 2 is what? 8. Thank you. Okay, on the left side of my equation, I'm just going to rewrite it 3y plus 9. And there's my blue equation, 3y plus 9 equals 4x plus 8. Standard form does not have x's on the right side and y's on the left. It has both x and y on the left side of your equal sign. So let's get this x to the left side. How do I get that 4x to the left side? Subtract 4x, okay? And you subtract 4x. Could you actually subtract 3x or 3y take away 4x? No, so we're just going to rewrite the whole thing. I'm going to have negative 4x plus 3y plus 9 equals 8. Because 4x take away 4x cancels out. You just have an 8 on the right side. It's almost in standard form. All I need to do now is what? Take away the 9. So if I take away the 9 and take away the 9, I will have negative 4x plus 3y equals negative 1. Yay? Yeah. Now, I do want you to do one more thing. This is standard form. Right here, your A value is technically negative 4, your B value is 3, your C value is negative 1. But I want you to do one more thing. Change all the signs so we could have a positive A value, because that's how it's going to appear on the final exam in a couple of weeks. All right. So for my final answer on this standard form equation, I'm going to change all the signs, make it a positive 4x, make it a negative 3y, make it a positive 1. And ladies and gentlemen, this is our standard form equation, and you get another point for that. So far you've gotten 3 points. You got 1 point for the slope, you got another point for point slope, you've got another point for standard. All we need is the final of the 3 forms, which is what? What's left out of those 3 up there? Slope intercept, right? So we already did point slope, we already have standard, all we need is slope intercept. Now, you could just take any of these equations and manipulate it to slope intercept. I want to continue with this standard form equation, and I want to manipulate it to slope intercept. So, let me rewrite my standard form, and let me start getting y by itself, because slope intercept form, after all, is y equals mx plus b. Y is by itself. So what do I do to start getting y by itself? Subtract 4x, subtract 4x. Our new equation will be negative 3y equals negative 4x plus 1. You can't really do 1 take away 4x, so you just rewrite it. My final step would be what? Divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. So my slope intercept form equation, which is y equals mx plus b, is going to be what? Y equals positive 4/3 x, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and you can't divide 4 by 3. And then at the very end, you're going to have a minus 1/3, or you could put plus negative 1/3. So there's my answer for my slope intercept form equation. Okay. Again, I got that from doing this last step over here. The negative 3's cancel. The negative 4 divided by negative 3, you can't do it, but a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 1 divided by negative 3 is the fraction 1/3, but negative. That's why it's a minus 1/3. So technically, this problem that I explained in 10 minutes, I mean, it's a lot of work. It should be faster than 10 minutes because I explained every detail of it. but you actually get 4 points out of the 25 on the test. 1 point for slope, another point for using the slope and a point to get it in point slope form, and you get another point by changing the point slope form to standard, then you get another point from changing the standard to slope intercept. That's a total of 4 points. Huge, huge part of the test. Make sure you understand it. So that's what this first part of the handout is talking about, that section on 4.3, writing an equation in all 3 forms given 2 points. Let's move on to the actual notes for today, parallel and perpendicular lines. So we know that parallel lines never intersect. They're going in the same direction. They have the same steepness, which means that they have the same slope. Parallel lines have the same slope. Here are some examples of parallel lines. Everybody take a look at number 1 right here. This is parallel to this one. Why is that? Because your slope is 2/3. Over here, your slope is 2/3. So they're going in the same direction. Now, if I actually went to a XY plane and sketched them, well, this first one crosses at -4. It'd have a dot down here, and you'd go up 2/3, and there's your line. The other one has an intercept at 7 way up here, but you still have the same slope up 2/3, and as you can see, it's going in the same direction, so these lines will never cross. But the point is to be able to identify parallel lines without having to draw it and seeing it visually. So as long as you see that this slope is the same as this slope, you could say that they're parallel. Now, if you're looking at number 2, are these parallel? Check that slope out. Are these parallel? And the answer is yes. And you're thinking, wait a minute, those aren't the same slopes. The thing is this, in order for you to see the slopes, you have to either have it in slope-intercept form or point-slope form. See, if you look at an equation in standard form, do you see an M right here? There is no M, right? So standard form doesn't help you. You can't see the slope. Slope-intercept, yeah, you could see the slope. And point-slope, yeah, you could see the slope. So when we take a look at this example right here, number 2, you're thinking, oh, this slope's -2, which it is because it's in y equals mx plus b. But you see this one has a negative sign in front of the y? That's not slope-intercept form yet. What do you have to do to make it in slope-intercept form? You have to multiply it by what? -1. So it requires some work before looking at the m. So if you multiply everything by -1, it's going to become a positive y equals a -2x minus 4. And now you could say, yes, this slope is -2 and this slope is -2. That's why they're parallel. If we take a look at example number 3 of these parallel lines, these are also parallel because this is in point slope form. There's my slope, which is m, which is 1/2. Here's my slope, 1/2. We know they're parallel because they have the same slope. Number 4, they're parallel. I know you're thinking, wait a minute, this guy has a slope of 1/2. The other one, you cannot see the slope unless it's in slope-intercept form or unless it's in point-slope form. So what form is it in? Neither, none. You need to change it. So what do I need to do to make it look like slope-intercept? That's right, I need to divide everything by 2. So I need to divide this by 2, this by 2. There's an invisible 1 in front of x. And this by 2. Bless you, by the way. So right here you could clearly see your slope is 1/2 because it is in point-slope form after all. Over here you need to rewrite it in slope-intercept form, which is y equals 1/2 x minus 7 is the y-intercept. But who cares about the y-intercept as long as you identify that the slopes are exactly the same. The m is 1/2 here, the m is 1/2 there. They are parallel. Okay, do we get it? Yes. Let's move on to perpendicular lines, which do not have same slopes, but they actually have negative reciprocal slopes. Now that's what it says over here. It describes what a perpendicular line is, lines that intersect, that cross each other to form 90-degree angles. Most streets intersect and are perpendicular with each other, right? Because they end up forming perfect crosses, 90-degree angles. But when we talk about algebraically, what is a perpendicular line? What could you say about their slopes? Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal m values, negative reciprocal slopes, or opposite, whatever you want to say. And it says change the sign and flip the fraction. That's how you could verify that they're perpendicular. So if we take a look at example number 1, these lines are definitely perpendicular because this slope is 2/3, and if I change the sign, it'll become negative, and if I flip the numbers, it'll become 3/2. So this is truly 2/3, -3/2. This is a negative reciprocal slope of the original. So that's why they're perpendicular, right? Number 2, these are definitely perpendicular because if you look at this first slope, it isn't y equals mx plus b, but it's really the slope -2/1. If I change the sign, it becomes positive, and if I switch the positions, it becomes 1/2. Are you with me? Okay. Down here, they're in point slope form, and again, the slope is -1/3. If you change it, it becomes positive, and if you flip it, it becomes 3/1, which is just 3. So these guys are definitely perpendicular. These guys, in order for me to see this slope, I need to change it. So let's change the equation. What am I going to do to see the slope? On number 4, the second equation. What am I going to do to this equation to see the slope? Divide everything by -3. Okay, so my first equation that's in point slope form is clearly the slope 3/2. My second equation now is in slope intercept form, and that slope is -2/3 x, and then minus or plus 4 at the very end. So our slope value, as you could see, is an opposite reciprocal of this slope. So yes, they're perpendicular. Now this final section, let's read through this important detail. Important detail: when deciding whether the lines are perpendicular, parallel, or neither, you must have the equations written in either y equals mx plus b or point slope, so you could see the slope or so you could see the slope. That's the only way you could see slopes. Standard form will not help you. Okay, so make sure you rewrite your equation if you need to. So here are some practice problems for you guys. What do you guys say? And by the way, there's going to be 3 almost exact questions like these on the test Friday. So what do you guys say? Number 1, are these parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Perpendicular. Now, all you got to do is think this. What is this slope? 1/2. Because you could see it because it says y equals mx plus b. So yeah, the slope is 1/2. So first question, is this slope 1/2? No, it's not. So for sure they're not parallel, right? That's out of the way. If I take this 1/2 and I change the sign, it's going to become negative. And if I take the numbers and flip it, it's going to be 2/1, right? And 2/1 is just 2. So this really becomes -2. That's -2. So what do we say about these 2 equations? They are perpendicular. Let's look at the next one. Could we see the slope on either of these equations? Which one? The second one is the only one that you could see a slope right now. The slope is 1/3 because it's in point slope form. Now the first equation, the slope is not -1, right? You need to change it to slope intercept form to be able to see the slope. So what do I need to do to number 2 in order to see the slope? Divide by -3. So I divide by -3, divide by -3, divide by -3. My new equation is y equals, there's an invisible 1 right here, and a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So you really have 1/3 with an x and plus 8/3. But who cares about the b value? All we want to find is the m value, and the m value is clearly 1/3. Now we know that the m value is 1/3. So what do you know about the other m value? It's 1/3. So what could we say about number 2, comparing both of those lines? They are parallel. Parallel. So number 2 is parallel. Number 3, what form is this first equation in? Is it in slope it's in standard. Could you see an m value in standard? No. So you're going to have to change this equation completely, right? So we're going to have to get it in y equals mx plus b. So let's get y equals mx plus b. I'm going to have to zoom in a lot. There's not much space here. So I'm going to subtract 2x and subtract 2x, and I'm going to rewrite it 3y equals -2x plus 12. And then we're going to divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. So y equals negative 2/3 x plus 4. Are you with me? So what's my slope? Negative 2/3. If the other one has the slope negative 2/3, then they're parallel. Now, I still can't see the slope over here because I need to get rid of that 3 first. I need to make it look like y equals mx plus b in order for me to see the m. So I need to divide everything by what? By 3. Divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. So y equals 2/3 x plus 5/3. Who cares about the b value? So when we compare this slope, 2/3, with the other slope, negative 2/3, are those parallel? No. Are they perpendicular? No. They're neither, right? When I say parallel, I'm really saying, are these exactly the same? Are they exactly the same? No, that's when it's parallel, when they're exactly the same. Are they opposite signs and reciprocals of each other? No, they're opposite signs, but the 2/3 doesn't become 3/2 over here. So it's not parallel, it's not perpendicular. Right here is where you say neither. Neither. Are you with me? Okay. Yes, we got 21-minute video and going for 35. I'm just kidding. Hopefully I can finish this quickly. Sorry about the long video. If you're tired watching it at home, hit pause. Go get a glass of milk or something. Number 4, eat some broccoli. Why am I saying that during the recording? Number 4, what's the slope of the first equation? Right here, what's the slope? 1. What's the slope over here? Negative 1. Are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Perpendicular, right? If you think about the slope, the invisible slope, it's 1/1. If I were to change the sign and flip the fraction, it will become negative 1/1, and that's exactly what the other slope is. So these guys are perpendicular. And finally, number 5, feels like. Number 5, could we see the slope of the first equation? Yes. What is the slope? 2/3, because it's in slope-intercept form. Perfect. Could we see the slope of the second equation? No. Not yet. What do I need to do to that second equation to see the slope? Divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. So we really have y equals 2/3 x plus 5. So what's the slope on the second equation? What's the slope on the second equation? 2/3 as well, right? So this one's 2/3, the first one's 2/3. So are these parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Neither. What? It's a curveball I threw at you guys, right? Now, what am I talking about? Actually, I tricked myself. In the other class, I said they were parallel, and that's why I'm re-recording this. Because, check this out. Yes, this is 2/3. Yes, this is 2/3. But what line is it? If you look at the whole line, y equals 2/3 x plus 5. And this one's y equals 2/3 x plus 5. So it's the same exact line. I mean, it's just one line. You can't have parallel lines if it's just one line, right? So this is a really tricky question. Neither. Maybe. I don't know. Okay, the last one. Number 6. In order for you to see the slope, it needs to be in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. And this has a negative y. It's not in slope-intercept form. So I have to multiply everything by negative 1. So I'd have y equals negative x. And if you want it to look like slope-intercept form, you could put negative 1/1 to get your slope. And you could put plus 0 if you want to have your b value. And on the other one, it is 1/1 also, and then plus 0 if you want also. And what could we say about this slope right here and this slope right here? They are negative reciprocal slopes. They are opposite and they do change, so it is perpendicular for that last one. Perp. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have to know all of this stuff that we covered. This is a long video, but everything on this video comes out on Friday's test. It's about half of your test. So please make sure you watch it again, practice the questions again, and you'll be more prepared for the test.